YouTube, what's going on? My name is Denonu, the man with the biggest and the most blackest privilege on YouTube. And this is going to be another video talking about Black Panther. And I'm just going to touch on a few topics that I really didn't expand upon in my previous commentary. And that's because I got sidetracked talking about other things, or stumbled over my words, or just rambled on about a lot of things instead of what I wanted to talk about. But this is gonna be like a list of a few things that I think really stood out in the movie, good or bad. Nothing super serious or nothing like that. Nothing that detracts from the main story, I guess, of what they were trying to tell, but there's things that stood out to me about not really my impressions about what they did, but more so of I guess points that by making the movie that they did, what stood out with it in my eyes when it comes to just the movie, not about the story, or well, a little bit of things about the story, but it's not about basically how I think they should have filmed the film differently. This isn't going to be one of those. And the first thing I want to touch upon, I don't know if anybody else noticed it. I didn't see any other review sites talking about it, so maybe I'm the only one, but the first part we got to talk about is Black Panther's costume. And I know a lot of people are talking about it and whether they like it or dislike it, things like that, but I know the first thing that stood out to me is when you had that one scene when they were going back to Wakanda after he got his ex back, is when he stood up. There was like a torn part on the costume, you know, like around the thumb area. And that was the first thing that popped out to me, because I was like, wait a minute, isn't his, costume supposed to be form-fitting all around his body? But I guess it doesn't matter, I guess, in the context of the movie, but being who I am, that was like the one thing I noticed. I guess most of the time when movies do scenes like that, they put something in your face, meaning like they want you to be looking at whatever it is in the scene that they want you to look at, and then usually it's stuff either behind them, like what they want you to see, or alongside it. And this was I just happened to be looking at that one specific spot when he stood up with his ex when they reached Wakanda. And it was like, at first, because I thought it was her, her hand, but her hand didn't have any gloves on it. But on Chadwick Boseman's hand, on his left hand, there was like a torn part on the thumb where the costume was ripped open. And I wanted to make sure, like, maybe it was just me, so I went back to the trailer of it, and I'm sitting here looking at it now when they had the same scene of him standing up, and it's not there. So I don't know if maybe they did 2 takes of the scene, or maybe whoever put together that trailer was like, oh yeah, we got to edit this part out, so let me just make this black a little bit. And they just kind of fixed it. But they didn't fix it in the movie, or at least the version I've seen, so I'm assuming that's the same one that everybody else did. But something else that kind of grabbed me when I first saw it, and this wasn't all throughout the movie, but I heard a few people talking about this too, was that the fight choreography wasn't on point. And that's something I will say, like, certain scenes in Black Panther were done great. Like the scene of him beating up the people and beating up the African convoy in the beginning, that was great. I love how they did that. That casino scene, however, was a little bit lacking. And I don't mean from a choreography point of view where it's like, oh, I think the fighting just wasn't on par. Meaning, let's say, like, take how Batman fights in, what's it called? The Dark Knight Rises. Take the fighting in that versus, let's say, the fighting in Daredevil, where it's just leagues above what the other one is. I don't mean it's like that, where it's like the fighting could be technically better. I mean, granted, I want that, don't get me wrong. Because I think the fighting in that, whenever you have the fighting look more visceral, I think that makes the film better. I think that's why when you have like Asian kung fu movies or modern martial arts movies now that come out, they look a whole lot better when you have people who realistically know how to do this shit. But in Black Panther, when I mean the fight scenes weren't that good, it's just that they look like movie fight scenes. And that's what I don't want. Where you see somebody stand still and then you see like somebody punch in front of them. And in most movies, they try to hide the impact, or they try to hide, the fist hitting the face, things like that from different angles. But in this, it was like certain things were just off, where it was like when Michonne was whooping ass in that scene, granted, I love the scene, but you can clearly see where it was like certain things just didn't work, you know. I guess her pretending to fight was cool because you got her emotion behind it. Like when she kicked the dude off the rail, you can see like when she kicked her leg out, you can see that motion travel like upper leg and upper body. But you know, maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing, YouTube, but I'm just saying that's what I noticed when I seen that scene. You know. But you can see the motion like travel up her body when she did that, so I like that a lot. But when Black Panther did that crouching spinning kick, you can see his kick was like a foot in front of the guy, and then the guy flew back. So it was like certain cuts of it was like, oh, I'm gonna phantom punch this guy or phantom kick this person, you know. It just didn't look right. It's like I want the fighting to be like Daredevil all the time, where it's just like damn near perfect, you know, with how they make it look, and they make it look real. And at least in that scene in Black Panther, it didn't look right to me. Again, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's just that was the first thing I noticed when I seen it. When he did that spinning back kick, and I was like, wait a minute, he didn't kick that guy, but yet that guy flew back. Or like when Michonne kicked the guy off the thing and he landed on the casino table, it took like Chadwick Boseman like 2 seconds before he turned around, even though it was after the sound of the impact. Like you saw everybody else turn and then he turned. Like it's just, that's not the way sound works in real life. Unless he has super lazy reactions or was high. You know. He would have turned when everybody else heard the chips and heard the table break apart when the guy fell. But again, that's just how they did it. I don't know, maybe when I was trying to break it down, I was like, well, maybe that's two separate scenes that they kind of CG. Maybe they had Chadwick Boseman on green screen, and when he turned around, that was like his cue to turn around and hear the sound. And maybe they overlaid that on the scene of the guy falling, so that's why maybe they didn't time it up right. But that's if that was CG. If that was all in one take of showing him and the scene, then maybe he was just late with his turn. I don't know. But something else that stood out to me was a little bit later in that scene, when Michonne threw that spear from the car. like that was something I wasn't expecting. But when she was like, guns, so primitive, and then she like went up on the car with those magnetic heels and threw that spear through the car. I don't see how that would have stopped the car, because wouldn't the spear go in front of the car? But I guess maybe when it hit the car, maybe it suddenly took a downward turn, and just because they were going down the street or on a level street, and she threw it through the back windshield, through the front windshield, and then somehow it kind of made like a 45-degree angle turn and just hit the ground. So I don't know why it did that. Hey, Wakandan technology. Maybe their spears just changed direction in midair. I don't know. But that was the one thing I noticed. I was like, how to stop that car? I mean, it would have made more sense if like you'd have saw it fly past the car. Let's say like she threw it through the car, and then it went ahead of the car, maybe like 20 or 30 feet, and then gravity, kind of made it hit the ground and get stuck in the ground. Then the car ran into it. But the way that they made it look, or the way they made it cut it seemed like she threw it through the car, and then like at first I thought it went through the engine block of the car, but then when they showed the car stop, it was in front of the car. So I'm guessing, maybe they just, it's just how they did the CG. I mean, to me, it didn't look right. I'd rather seen, the spear get thrown in front of the car and then have the car slam into it versus just, her just somehow just stopping the car with the spear instantly. But again, something that in the end, in the end of things doesn't really matter at all. So, I'm trying to think of something else from that scene. It was something else that stood out to me. Anyway, don't really matter because I can't think about it. But next thing I'm going to talk about, what stood out with me being black, and was Shuri's jokes when she called Everett Ross colonizer, and she made the white boy cracks and things like that. I laughed hysterically. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna be like, oh, she was wrong for that. No, I was laughing my ass off. But I thought it was kind of because I hear some people talking about it online. They're saying, oh, it's racist and all these things. I don't think it's racist. I think it's risky. for Marvel to make those kind of jokes, given how they make their movies and what their mass appeal is, you know, when it comes to that, you know, the PG-13 type stuff that they like to do. And so it's not bad. It's just, it's very risky for them. And I know most of the people in my theater, it was like a mix of people. It wasn't like all black and a little bit of white or anything like that. It's like a mix. And nobody was like booing that scene, or nobody took that scene the wrong way. Everybody in there was laughing. So I guess it really paid off for them. I don't know if that's something you can keep doing throughout your movie, or maybe throughout future movies. That's going to be kind of weird if you do. Given in today's day and age where people always take things out of context, and every SJW got to stick up their butt about a lot of different things. So I definitely think that's something that they can't move forward with the franchise with, and keep that train going. You know, that's something you can't do. Something else I don't think they can do is they don't have no villains for Black Panther no more, YouTube. I mentioned it in my last video. But like, if you kill off Claw and Killmonger, like, you only have like 2 or 3 other bad guys you can pull from the comics. And like, you got Man-Ape is one, but then everybody likes him in this movie. So I'm pretty sure maybe in the next one you don't want to take a likable character and make him into a shit character, you know, that people are gonna hate. So that's because he was like the underlying star of the movie, where everybody was looking at Michonne or Black Panther or Killmonger. Everybody was like, yeah, we also love this other guy too. So it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, I want to see them make him a bad guy, but I don't think they're gonna do it at the end of the day, because why would you make your fans not like that particular character if you like him? That's like saying when Black Panther in Civil War, everybody liked, you know, him being badass as he was, kicking a lot of ass. But that then you turn around and make him, you know, make his movie and then make him soft and make him like a bad guy, or make him like a character that people are going to dislike. They're not going to do that. Doesn't make sense. And the other villains that they have in the comic books, they're, how would I put this? They're not known. If we're talking about characters from the movie, Black Panther's ex was a bad guy in the comics. Maybe they could flip her around. Maybe they can introduce Storm into the, you know, from the X-Men, and have, you know, her marry Black Panther and have his ex get super jealous, and then lead that into with her being a bad guy. Because that's, you know, it didn't happen that way in the comic books, but he does marry Storm in the comic books, and also she became a bad guy. So maybe if they wanted to spin a movie, that's one way they can tell that, because she became her own villainous character, and she was working with Killmonger and the Mandarin and things like that. So it's one of those things where, well, since Marvel, you know, I want them to do the Mandarin, you know, but they haven't, you know, jumped down that road yet. They hinted at it, but they didn't really do that right. So I don't know how they can really make her be a bad guy unless you make all of those adjustments. And since they killed off Killmonger in this, I mean, it would just be her, you know. So it's kind of weird, because they can make her into a bad guy, but I can't see her being the main villain, you know, because she didn't have a whole lot of character like that. And usually in a movie, you have to have that character. So that's why I think that if they bring Storm into the mix, maybe you can somehow mix that up in there, spark some of that womanly jealousy in there and things like that. And then I don't know how you would tie that into Black Panther and Wakanda, you know, and all of that, but, you know, maybe they can make it happen that way. Or they could just do what they're doing with Ant-Man and the Wasp, like I said in my last video. Maybe they could reach into some other heroes, you know, repertoire of villains, and pull out somebody and then have them fight Black Panther. Like, I know it was rumored before the movie released that they were going to have Kraven the Hunter in this. So maybe they can, you know, he fought Black Panther at least once or twice. So maybe you can have him being your bad guy. And of course, he's a bad guy of Spider-Man, if you guys didn't know. So they can do that, and maybe they can make that work. and have somebody, because Craven was somebody who was a hunter. He was also like Black Panther, where he I forget how he got his powers. I want to say it was like through chemicals or something, but he did something to his body where it gave him like Black Panther like abilities, where he got heightened senses, super strength, speed, stamina, that kind of thing. And that's how he was able to fight Spider-Man, and that's how he would be able to fight Black Panther. The only difference being is he's a hunter. His whole thing was hunting the biggest and strongest prey out there. Then he saw that, or he got warped and twisted and saw that in Spider-Man, and that's why he focused on him and became a bad guy. If you wanted to introduce him in future Spider-Man movies, that's one way you could do it. You can introduce him with Black Panther. Granted, that would change his origin all up, but you can still somehow keep the same origin, but just make him Black Panther be like the first guy he fights. Then at the end of that movie, have him get his ass whooped or whatever, and then look at Spider-Man and be like, maybe I gotta work my way up to the king of the jungle. Say something like that, and then have him see like a picture of Spider-Man or something, and then he's starting from small insects going, want to fight his way back up to the Black Panther. Do something like that, right? But outside of that, unless Marvel just really wants to go out of left field and just take somebody else's villain entirely, I guess you can have him fight, the Servant Society, bring in Captain America and have a team up movie with that. I guess they could do that. If you want to stick with animal-based type bad guys and stuff like that, because that's what was supposed to be Winter Soldier. I think it was supposed to be Winter Soldier, where it was going to be no, wait, I'm getting my movies mixed up. Before they made Civil War, they were going to make Captain America the Serpent Society, where if you guys didn't know, that's one of the organizations in Marvel that, of bad guys that's around. And it's kind of like, it's not all the way like this, but I'm going to say, think of Hive from DC Comics, where the Hive in that, they're more like Hydra, for Marvel, but they use genetic modifications to make themselves appear more snake-like, and the Serpent Society, that's kind of what they do. They either wear suits that make them be more like snakes, or they modify themselves genetically to be snakes. And they have an organization that's evil that goes around doing evil things. So maybe they can do something like that in future Black Panther movies, because right now, if they stick to what they just did in Black Panther, I don't know where future movies are gonna go. YouTube, I really don't. Something else that bugged me was we didn't get any Soul Stone reveal. I was kind of weirded out about that, because they still have yet to explain where the Soul Stone is, and it's like, from all the toys and the hints and stuff, they were talking about, it's going to be in Wakanda, and they didn't hint at nothing in Black Panther. The only thing I could think of is, and this is just me throwing rumors and my comic book knowledge out there, is if it's still in Wakanda, maybe they just haven't mentioned it. And I'm guessing that maybe when Infinity War comes around, maybe the Wakandans don't know this, but maybe the Soul Stone is going to be like at the center of their mound of vibranium, and they could somehow be like, oh, that's why it's like that. Or better yet, what I'm thinking, and I know a few other YouTubers are saying it's going to be like the heart-shaped herb, and I don't think it's gonna be the heart-shaped herb, because that doesn't make any sense, because they ground it up every time they have somebody drink some of it. What I think is that it's gonna be, maybe they can lead into the Soul Stone being, let's say, like under the roots of the plants, or somehow maybe the stone mutates the soil that the roots grow in, or maybe the roots spring up from the soil, and then grow the heart-shaped herb, and then that's why when you ground it up and you drink it, that's why you get sent to this astral plane, like dimension, where you can talk with your ancestors and everything. I think maybe they're gonna, once Infinity War comes around, maybe they're gonna, I guess, look into the heart-shaped herb, because Killmonger destroyed all of them. So again, that's something else that I forgot to mention, was at the end of the movie, there's no more heart-shaped herb. So does that mean there's no more Black Panthers that's gonna have superpowers? you know. So I'm guessing they have to start that back up, and I'm guessing that's how Marvel is going to do it. Is because I thought in the movie when you see the girl take the heart-shaped herb, I figured they were going to use that to grow more of them, but then they just ground that up and just gave it to him. So they don't have any more heart-shaped herbs, you know, the drink to get superpowers from. So either they're going to use their technology to somehow make more, which I think will be a huge cop-out, but I think that in looking into growing more, that they're going to be like, oh, well, the soil that this used to grow in, if we look a little bit deeper, what's this soul stone we find down here? That's what I think they're going to do. Or maybe when Thanos comes down there looking for it, that's when he's going to, already know it's, there, and that's when they're going to realize that maybe that had a plan in growing these heart-shaped herbs. So that's where I think they're going to do with that, but I just don't know for sure. That's just all rumors and speculation at this point. I guess I could talk about a couple of other things here before we have to end this video, because we're going like 20 minutes in. Is future movies and what I think they should do. Honestly, given what a lot of people like about Black Panther, you can do a whole lot with this. Hell, you can, give the Dora Milaje their own movie. I don't know how you would make it work, but give Michonne her own movie with like 2 or 3 people of the Dora Milaje, and you can have, Wakanda has to go out and do something, and they send, her out there with a couple people and have them fight like a minor threat. It don't have to be nothing groundbreaking, like it's gonna change the world, but introduce them in their own thing to where we see more of them. And I would really love to see that if they kept it the same, if they kept the same designs and the whole I'm gonna make up a word here, but the whole kick-assery of the Dora Milaje in Black Panther, if they're allowed to keep that, and if Michonne is able to come back and be that badass black woman that she was. Speaking of which, love that Grace Jones reference in the beginning. I think that was the name that they dropped, but Grace Jones in the beginning when they were at the door in LA, and he was like, oh, it's some bald Grace Jones looking bitches. Grace Jones was the black chick in Conan, if I remember right. And she always used to whoop ass in that, so I loved her character in that too. But really cool reference though, but probably went over a lot of people's heads. But yeah, give the Dora Milaje their own movie. Again, I don't know how you would make it work, but you can tell like an isolated story with them and have people go see it because they made such a good impression. Speaking of good impressions, Shuri, they can somehow do something with her. I don't think she can carry a whole movie by herself, but give her as the lead with a couple of other side people. Again, I don't know what kind of movie you would do, but do a movie around that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how you would have to take her. I guess you can keep her in the Wakanda thing, but I don't know how or what you would do with that, but a lot of people love her character in this movie. So I'm assuming Marvel would have to capitalize that on, or they would want to capitalize that on some level. I know she's probably going to be in Black Panther sequels. Probably anytime. She's probably going to be heavily shown in Civil War because they're going to be in Wakanda. So we're probably going to be seeing her. I would guess Black Panther and Shuri. Not necessarily the Dora Milaje, but even though they should be there too. But I'm guessing we may not see Michonne. We may see the Dora Milaje, but we may not see Michonne if they didn't carry over, movie contracts and things like that. So I'm hoping they did, but you never know at this point. It all depends on where they want to take their movies and whether the actors want to sign up for multiple pictures and stuff like that. But yeah, do something with Shuri. I don't know what that could be. Have her team up with Tony Stark or meet Tony Stark and have them throw jabs back at each other. That would be great. I would love that. Have them trade science ideas, things like that. One thing I don't want to see though, and a lot of people are hinting at this in reviews and stuff, is that, and it's just speculation, but they're guessing because I guess since Black Panther's new suit is nanotech, and it looks like Tony Stark's suit is going to be nanotech, but everybody is thinking that Shuri is going to give Tony Stark like Wakandan secrets to build suits. It's like, no, they're not going to do that. I would hate Marvel if they did that. And the only reason I say that is because that would invalidate Tony Stark's character. As a character, one of his things is being as smart as he is to engineer and build those suits. They're not going to turn around and be like, oh yeah, Shuri is smarter than you, so she's going to give you plans and you're going to take those plans and then make the bleeding edge in Infinity War. I doubt that. Doubt that a whole lot. Like I said, that's really a core part of his character. And even though he may not be the smartest person in the Marvel Universe, that would probably go to Reed Richards or his daughter or Doctor Doom or I can't even say Black Panther's probably smarter. Well, Black Panther is probably smarter in the Marvel comic book universe overall, if I had to count everything, because he's like Batman in that regard, where it's like, oh, I have knowledge about everything. Tony Stark, he's not well, I wasn't gonna say he's not a super genius, but he is a super genius, but it's in certain areas. For those of you who don't know, in Marvel Comics, Tony Stark isn't the most smartest guy in the world, regardless of what the MCU would like you to believe. He's just smart. He's the smartest guy in the world when it comes to his area of expertise, and that's engineering. When it comes to having idea, formulating it, and creating and implementing that idea, the smartest man you could talk to is Tony Stark. Now, if you're wanting to know something about astrophysics or like, look, how do we go from this dimension to this dimension? Then you want to go talk to Reed Richards. He's like that's the man you want to talk to when it comes to all that weird high science, super science stuff. That's Reed Richards' thing. If whatever you got going on has to deal with radiation or how to track irradiated creatures or something like that, Bruce Banner. Because that's, gamma radiation and all that, that's all his ball of wax. So anything to deal with gamma radiation, Bruce Banner. If your thing is biology and you want to know how ecosystems work or how animals in that ecosystem work or anything like that, Hank Pym. That's your go-to guy, because he's, Ant-Man, older Ant-Man, not Scott Lang Ant-Man, because that's like his thing. His thing is biology. He knows all of that, and not biology as far as like human beings and stuff like that goes, but as far as like how insects and animals interact with their environment, that's his thing. So that's why I say Tony Stark isn't the smartest guy, in there. So Shuri is smarter than him, but at the end of the day, he doesn't need Shuri to give him, Wakandan technology. Nanotech or nanomachines isn't a Wakandan concept that could be applied to anything. So if you just have him be like, oh, we got this vibranium from Wakanda, let's just give it to Tony Stark. Why would they give the weapon designer the known weapon designer access to vibranium? That makes no sense, because he would just turn around and just what he would do with it. So I think his suit and his nanotech is going to be on all completely his design. Usually in the Iron Man comics, usually most of his suits, they're stuff that he completely fabricates himself, or in-house, as it were. There's only been a couple times where he's used other people's technology in a different way to work with the Iron Man concept. And usually I think in the comic books, which I would want them to see, I want them to bring in other concepts from the comics that we haven't seen in the movies yet. And in one suit that Iron Man had in the comic books, I forget what they called it, but his company, I want to say, was kind of half brought out by this Japanese company, and or it was either that or Tony Stark's company brought the Japanese company, and he brought them only because that they had developed this metal. It was like this gold metal that would be, let's say, liquid when you just by itself, but then you could program it to form different shapes and functions and things like that. And he used it in, like, I want to say, like, two versions of the armor. One, because you could tell it what to do and have it perform specific purposes. and he used it in both of those until he, I think something happened with the suit where he just decided not to use it and choose a different direction to develop him. But this golden metal, this golden programmable metal was like, it wasn't as strong as vibranium or adamantium, but it was like, other than that, it was indestructible. And that was one of the reasons why he wanted to use it. But I forget why he chose to go a different route after making a couple suits, but they can bring in something like that into the movies because in the movies and I guess this all goes down to, the movie rights, is in the movies it's different than in the comic books. In the comic books you have like 3 or 4 different metals that are like, oh, the strongest metal out there. You have vibranium, and which is durable, but the thing with vibranium, unlike the movies, vibranium is not indestructible. It's super strong, don't get me wrong, but if you have adamantium, it'll cut right through that shit. That's just how it goes. Same thing with Captain America's shield. In the movies, and people on YouTube think that vibranium is like, oh, that's what Captain America's shield is made out of. No, Captain America's shield is not made out of vibranium. They're getting that from that first movie, but even in the movie, that's they couldn't really go into it because they didn't have the rights. But Captain America's shield, the reason why that's so good is because it's not straight vibranium. If it was straight vibranium, then Black Panther could just go up and just like that scene in Civil War where he, tried to cut Captain America's shield. If this was if his shield was vibranium and his claws were vibranium, that would have cut right through it. But the reason why, at least in the comic books, what makes Captain America's shield better than, let's say, straight vibranium is that it's kind of like a proto adamantium. It's not straight adamantium. It's kind of like a mix of, I want to say it's like a mix between like vibranium and steel and something else. Because what they were doing was in the comic books, how adamantium got made was they had vibranium, and it was the chunk that Captain America got from, I want to say it was either like Black Panther's father or grandfather from back in the day, and he took that chunk of vibranium and brought it to America and was like, look, can y'all make me something out of this? And they went to like this top metallurgist guy, and his goal was to try to somehow make this vibranium into something. And what had happened is while he was working on it, he fell asleep, and in doing so, some chemicals or some other metals got mixed in with it, and that made Captain America's shield. And they were like, oh shit, this shield is indestructible, can't nothing hurt it. So they were like, look, make more of this shit. And the problem was since he fell asleep, he didn't know how he made it. That's why in the comic books there's only one Captain America shield. So what he did was during his experimentation trying to figure out what made it work, that's how he developed adamantium, and that's why adamantium is technically better, or that's why it's the strongest metal in the world, because adamantium is like part vibranium and part other things, and that's how you make it. And once you forge it, it stays in that forged state unless you break it down molecularly. So in the movies they can't do that because they can't say adamantium since that's tied with Wolverine and the X-Men. So they just say, oh yeah, it's just straight vibranium, when really that's not the case. But I guess by this being their movie verse, they can do whatever the hell they want. But it's just gonna make problems when you do introduce, let's say, Wolverine and the X-Men, and you have him fight something that has vibranium in it, and then it's like, so are you going to make his adamantium cut through the vibranium like it's supposed to? Or are they just going to be like, oh, vibranium is just indestructible and your adamantium is indestructible, so let's just do nothing? I would like to see them kind of revisit that concept when that happens, and then I guess expand more onto how Captain America's shield was made. Maybe you could say like, since I think in the movies Howard Stark made Captain America's shield, so they can be like, well, maybe when he made it, maybe he was out, whoring around or something, or getting drunk. And let's say he somehow made it, but he didn't know how he made it. And, then you can spin it off and do it like in the comic books. And then somehow, then you can bring in adamantium after that some kind of way. I mean, you don't have to say he made it, because I think that's kind of redundant. I mean, don't get me wrong, Tony Stark's, family is smart, but it's like, come on, you can't have them have a hand in making everything in the damn universe. So, I would like to see them take that concept. Maybe they take his plans for making the shield and somebody else tries to duplicate him and can't do it right, and that's why you get adamantium and not, vibranium or something like that. But they can somehow make it work if they want to. I just wish to see that they change that some kind of way. Could be because then that brings in other aspects of Black Panther you can do, like his anti-metal claws or Antarctic vibranium. They could talk about that, where Antarctic vibranium is durable like regular vibranium, but it slices through any other metals. So he has those built into his claws, so he can slice through damn near anything. And I think that can even cut through adamantium, but I'm not sure. I want to say that's probably the one thing it can't do, but I want to say it can, because I remember a scene in comic books where Misty Knight had her arm made out of Antarctic vibranium, and that was cutting through something that had regular adamantium on it, but I could be wrong. But I think it also cuts through that too. So maybe they can introduce that, or then get into talking about Uru and because Marvel, they got a lot of metals that you can deal with. They even have golden adamantium, which is like completely the shit, completely unbreakable. Can't nothing break it, can't nothing destroy it. I doubt Marvel's gonna go that way though, because even in the comic books, that was in like an alternate dimension where they found that with Wolverine, and I think it was Wolverine was gay in the comic book, but his claws were coated in that, so his claws could cut through anything, including other adamantium. So that was pretty cool. But outside of that, since we're getting 36 minutes in, let me talk about the last couple things, and let me stop rambling on about comic book knowledge. But Black Panther decimated the box office over the weekend. No hint, no ifs, ands, and buts about it. It came open, kicked open the door, and said, "I got the biggest dick in the room because I'm black." And I think it made over like 400 million over the weekend, and like over the 3-day weekend. And a lot of people are talking about when you compare the Justice League, it kind of 400 million, I think, was the amount that Justice League made in its entire theatrical run. And it's kind of embarrassing for them right now. They're experiencing massive shrinkage because of their jealousy of Black Panther's big black penis. But it just shows, goes to show you that if you make a good movie, people will watch. It's kind of like that baseball movie with I was about to say Kevin Conroy, but what's that white guy's name? The guy who was in Waterworld, Kevin Costner, I think his name is. That baseball movie, If You Build It, They Will Come. Well, if you make a good comic book movie, you'll sell tickets. I'm sure WB is probably looking at themselves like, what the fuck are we doing? You thought they were on Suicide Watch before, but nah. They probably just don't know what to do with none of their stuff. But I'm not gonna bash them all too much, even though I can make a whole separate video bashing them and pointing out things that what they did wrong. But honestly, I just don't think they know what they're doing, and they have to figure out. If you want to try to make a movie universe, you have to, again, like I say in every commentary movie where I talk about that, you got to plan shit out. You can't just make it on the fly. Can't do it. And honestly, they need to think about where they want to take their stuff, plan accordingly, and then do it. Right now, they're talking about making solo movies again, which I don't think is going to work for them. Honestly, like, they might make money off of them, but if everybody's going to look at their defeat at the hands of Marvel and then probably stick with Marvel. Like, yeah, you may get other people to watch their shit, but they're going to look at what Black Panther did and what Marvel is going to definitely do in Infinity War, because you think this movie made money. I think Infinity War is gonna break the bank once it comes out. I think the only thing that may keep Black Panther on top as far as like money or how much gross it's gonna make is the fact that this Black Panther is gonna probably make money until Infinity War comes out. And I think the only thing that might keep Black Panther above Infinity War as far as overall gross or how much money it made is the black impact that this movie has and all the different racial themes that resonate with black people, and not only black people but with other races too. So that's the only other thing that elevates this movie. This movie has become a movement, in Hollywood and around the world and things like that for people who want to see this movie. And that's the only thing Infinity War I don't think is going to have. it's going to have the lineage of the MCU behind it. So it's going to make tons of money and probably millions and millions of dollars when it comes out. But if it doesn't beat Black Panther, it's that Black Panther movement was the only reason why it didn't. But that's what I think is going to happen. You know, because either I'm assuming it's going to eclipse Black Panther and be like the top selling movie everywhere because it has so much lineage and so much MCU history behind it, and people have been watching their movies for the past 10 years, so they want to see how it all plays out and ends. So I think it's going to pull in everybody for that. So that's going to be like a movement by itself, but I don't think that movement is going to be as big as the Black Panther movement and the whole Wakanda Forever movement that's going on around surrounding this movie. So, but honestly, if I had to compare how Marvel is doing movies going forward and compare that to DC, Marvel may be in a similar place after Infinity War. I'm not saying their movies are going to suck by any means, and they're not going to be shitty, shitty reviewed and things like that, like WB's movies are, but they have to plan out the next, I mean, if you want to call it a phase, I don't think they're going to do phases no more, but they have to plan out the MCU after Captain America, Thanos, and Iron Man. And I don't know how they're going to do that. I mean, I think even in my last video, I said I don't know how they would do that, but I think the easiest way is have Black Panther, since he's young enough to do it and people love him as a character and they love his movie, have Black Panther be your center of your universe. Have him be like the Robert Downey Jr. of Iron Man. I'm not of Iron Man, of the MCU. And then you can have him be like, your front face on there. That way, in case if Robert Downey Jr., I'm assuming after Infinity War he may be done, or Captain America may be done. I'm assuming Helmsworth, Thor, he's gonna probably stay on to do more movies because that's what he wants to do. So they'll probably just renegotiate his. But Captain America and Iron Man, it all depends on what they want to do. And Chris Evans could still do it, but who knows if he wants to stay being Captain America. Robert Downey Jr. is getting older in age, so he's gonna probably, I would assume, step away from the role. It would be like the perfect time to do so. And then Marvel would have to fill that vacuum of having that kind of character in your movie. I would hope that they recast his character, even though that that new person's probably not going to be as good, but I would rather see them recast Iron Man and then come out with more Iron Man movies, maybe bring out the Mandarin finally, do something like that. Or I would hate if they just took Shuri. I swear to God, I would cuss Marvel out if they did. If they take Shuri, since people love her in this, and kind of make her into the MCU version of Riri Williams, which I also hate the comic books. Oh, I would hate that so bad if they did that. But it all depends on how they want to take their universe and what changes they make. Because they make changes to characters when they make the movies, but usually they keep the core of the characters the same. So Shuri has her own plot in Black Panther. If you guys ever read her comic book, she actually becomes Black Panther at some point. So it's going to be one of those things where I would want her to do that, because then that would make, that would bring in Black Panther again, talking with Bast, the Panther God. Also, speaking of that was something else I like in the movie too, where he referenced it, where he was like, "For Bast's sake." I was like, yes. Because they don't believe in God. They don't believe in Christian God. They believe in Bast, the Panther God. So that was a nice nod when he said that in the film. But that starts with him talking with Bast and him becoming, the leader of this, the necropolis, the Black Panther City of the Dead, things like that. The thing that in the movie was that world he went to and spoke to his dad in. He actually becomes the leader for that, and that's how he gets his powers back during that story arc. So if they just somehow take Shuri and have her meet Tony Stark and then have something happen to Stark and then be like, "Oh, I want to be the next Iron Man," I'm like, I'd be like, "Fuck you, Marvel, fuck you." But anyways, guys, that's just been my thoughts on the whole thing. Again, another 45-minute video. Damn, I swear I went into this thinking I wanted it to be 10 minutes. I was gonna speak on a couple things and that was gonna be it, but anyways, guys, that's just been my thoughts on a few different topics and things that I wanted to expand upon, and I didn't really get to do that with my first video. We expanded a little bit, but I kind of rambled on a hell of a lot about other things, kind of like what I did here, but just nowhere near as much. But if you guys want to see more commentaries from me here, or thoughts about any something specific or anything specific, just hit me up down in the comments below. I don't mind reading those, and I don't mind kicking out these videos to you guys. But or if you guys want to talk about Black Panther or the MCU or anything in particular about Marvel or their characters, or about WB and their superhero characters and their movies, just let me know too. I don't mind, conversing and, having, conversations and things like that. So my name is Denonu, the man with the biggest and the most blackest privilege on YouTube. Now I got to say that even louder since Black Panther came out, right? But I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.